Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Here, take the bomb.
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of the Peasants Perspective. And Pony Boy is sharp on the minute.
Oh, yeah. Good
morning. Welcome, welcome. You are back on top, Pony Boy. You've got some run for your money on being the first ever. A lot of people trying to dethrone you. John Attackis especially. Last week he was a couple times in the week he was the first. So good morning. Glad you made it. And it looks like we'll give everybody just a few minutes to pile in. I know it's Monday morning. People aren't used to getting back into the routine. Ron, you were good this morning. Showed up bright and early. This light behind me so it's not shot. Oh, yeah. Got my blue lights. They're kind of fun. Oh, we had a good episode with Gary on Saturday. Watch for that to drop on takebackyourcounty.com or just Take Back Your County, the podcast. You can find it as a Rumble channel associated with Peasants Perspective. You can also find it on all of your apps. So all of your podcast players, it should be up. There aren't any episodes loaded, but watch for one this week. We got to tinker around just a little bit with it. We pre-recorded it. So anyways, glad to have you guys. And I know why Pony Boy showed up bright and early this morning. The one and only right now. He showed up for the simultaneous sip. And all you need for that is a cup or a mug or a glass, a tankard, a chalice or stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. This morning, I have a can of iced coffee caramel macchiato. Delicious. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like this cup macchiato. I've already been sipping on it a little bit this morning. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure of the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better, the simultaneous sip. And it starts right now.
It's not lost on me that the Democrats just want votes from anybody they can get it from. And they don't mind letting some illegals vote either. And that's inexcusable.
That is so true, isn't it? They don't mind letting a couple of illegals vote. That's inexcusable. Man, lots of good things happened last week on the election front. That's pretty exciting. Stick around for private today. We're going to be talking about the redistricting battle. It's a big deal. Totally reset the stage and has the Democrats completely on their back foot. If you like watching Democrats and socialist communists squirm a little bit, that was a good week for us. Kind of reset the chessboard a little bit. The level of cheat they're going to need to win at this point is off the charts.
Oh boy.
So John Attackis joined us. Good morning for Frazier. It's a great morning in Boise, Idaho. Oh, I bet it is. My kids this week all want to move. Every single one of them, top to bottom. They all want out. They're like, let's go, let's leave. I'm like, well, what if we just get a second house in Florida? I'm thinking like a small house in Cape Coral with a pool, something nice. Anyways, so speaking of real estate, we've got something interesting happening in Seattle. And this is localized to Seattle, King County, specifically the Seattle proper. So Seattle city limits. So Seattle's housing market is going through a historic inventory shock. There are now 8,630 listings across the Seattle metro area. Oh, it says metro area. I thought it was Seattle proper. This is generally King County.
Okay.
As of April 2026, in a normal April, there are about 4,600 listings. There are 8,630 listings, meaning inventory today is 88% above normal. This is happening due to layoffs, a historic lack of affordability, increased outbound migration. Like I said, my family's ready to roll. Ultimately, good news for local Seattle buyers. For the first time in a decade, you have control over this market. Expect prices to fall in the next year, potentially a lot in certain zip codes. And here's the chart here. Back in 2019, when we were kind of, we didn't have a housing crisis necessarily, but we did have some affordability for just a brief moment, 5,938. And here we are starting in 2024. Woo, it has gone up and up and up. What I look at this is this is the war on Trump. This is the TDS infection that has infected Olympia and King County Council and King County City Office is affecting this. Conservatives are bailing out of the state in record numbers. And our new tax on millionaires thing doesn't help any at all. And the thing about Seattle and Washington state in general is we have some really socialist policies. Here's Patty Murray. She's talking about legal aid help. So apparently the federal government gives a bunch of money to Washington state to give to low income people to fight their legal battles. It's legal aid. This goes for it's anytime you have a criminal charge against you, you're entitled to a public defender. Right. It's at the cost of the state, right? It's the whole you have to have a fair shot. So, we're going to give you an attorney no matter how bad they might be.
They just got out of dental school.
They just got out of dental school and I passed the bar. Yeah. But now we also have this going on with civil stuff. Apparently it's been going on for a long time. One of the things I've noted about Washington state is it's a extremely tenant friendly state. It is hard to evict someone here. Unlike Texas, where I'm pretty sure it's written into state law that the landlord can show up with a revolver and evict you himself.
Yeah, I think we had landlords in this state that lost their properties eventually over people that just camped out and they couldn't get rid of them.
We have some serious squatter problems and things like that. And a lot of it ties back to this. It's the free legal aid for these civil things, including tenant issues.
Core principle in our country is equal justice under the law. But if you can't afford help, you don't get that equal justice. President Trump wanted to zero out all money for legal aid. I said no last year and reinstated some of that money. I say no again this year. I'm here today talking to people impacted by this. I'm going to go back to Washington, D.C. I'm going to tear up that budget and fight to make sure people have equal justice under the law and legal aid is protected.
Oh, great. More social services in order to sue people. Wonderful. It's just amazing. You know who's really making a lot of waves on the local scene is this gentleman down in L.A. that's running for mayor. His name is Spencer Pratt. And Spencer Pratt, from everything I can tell, is your classic California hopes and dreams guy. Okay. Right. At some point, he tried to have himself a career in reality TV. His wife tried to be a singer. I mean, this is like classic. I moved to LA to try to make it big kind of thing going on, which is cool. I mean, that's the whole point of California, right? One of the things I've noticed over the years as I've traveled across the country, if you go involved in sales and real estate and stuff like that, if you go to the Midwest, it's like, prove it, show me. It's like money doesn't grow on trees, young man. That kind of an attitude. You go to California, it's like, you mean I can buy a lottery ticket and get rich? Yeah, man. You mean I can go into like one commercial audition and get on a TV show? Yeah, man. It's like fast money. Everybody wants to get rich, highly money motivated.
But it's like the lottery.
It is like the lottery.
If you've ever seen somebody who got a spot on a commercial or on a show or something, when they find out that they got the spot, oh my gosh, it's like somebody won NASCAR or something. They're like, they're so excited.
It's hilarious to me because I knew a lady years and years ago. This has been 10 plus years ago. And she was from LA, Hollywood area, and she was a pharmacist.
Oh, no.
Okay. She was a pharmacist. She was a doctor. And as a doctor in LA, she made like 180 grand, which there is like, just above minimum survival
just
wage.
Scraping by.
So she was going out and she was going to auditions to be in commercials, and she was in a bunch of commercials, but they were public service announcements like don't smoke on the bus commercials and, like pull the string to be at the next stop.
Right. The more you know. Do.
Yes. It was public service announcement commercials, but she would be sometimes an extra and things like that. But she was trying to make it into the movie industry because the pay is better. Anyways, she did that for like 10 years and then moved up to Washington where that $180,000 went a little farther. So this is Spencer Pratt, and he's being interviewed by Axion. And this is All In podcast people, or it's All In. And he's talking about what his policies will be if he's elected mayor. Now, remember, he's kind of got the buzz. He's addressing all the little issues that Californians, specifically people in LA, want to deal with. They want to deal with homelessness. They want to deal with crap on the road. Some of his commercials are the best. Like there's one that's like, a month in after Spencer Pratt is elected mayor, and this lady's walking down the street. It's like, now I know when I step on the sidewalk, it's dog not human shit. And then there's another one where it's like a firefighter who's like, turns out it's easy to fight fires when the reservoirs that we get water from are full. And it's like all these like completely common sense things. So here's him on the podcast, basically telling people what his policies are going to be. Tell me if this isn't appealing to the average LA resident.
First 3 weeks, signs up across the city. No more nakedness. No more drug use. No more robbing. No more
burning dogs in the street.
No more dog abuse. Very on every sign, on every bird. So that, and we're going to go around. We're going to warn everybody. Hey, got 3 more weeks of this. Like, clock's ticking. Just keep telling everyone. Just so the people that are aware, they're like, oh wow, there's a new mayor in town. They may start leaving. And then when the 3 weeks, or maybe we'll even do 2 weeks, maybe people will want it faster. And then once we start enforcing the laws, boom, streets will be back. You know who else I'm going to bring in? The CDC, because there's medieval diseases in these encampments. They're not swabbing these encampments. They're not swabbing the streets. People are just living in feces and drug use and dogs burning and body. We need these streets cleaned.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan to me. All we're going to do is start enforcing our laws. Now, CNN had a little debate over this, and there was kind of a meltdown here, right? Because an LA resident is like, there's no plan. That to me sounds like a plan. Enforce the laws, right?
Yeah.
It's just pretty
It's
simple.
brilliant plan.
Enforce the laws. And apparently Spencer Pratt is speaking to your average millennial, like the people in LA that want to make it. I did a wealth assessment that we do over at 1776 Live. When you attend an Ignite presentation, we'll do a wealth assessment. We'll meet with you one-on-one, talk about your situation, see if you're a fit for the community. And I was meeting with this young lady. She's from LA. I was like, so why are you living in LA? And she's doing really well for herself at her age. Again, early 20s, like same age as my daughter. And she's making about 80 grand a year.
All right.
Sounds good. In LA, though,
Yeah.
she can't even afford an apartment. Right? It's tough stuff. And I was like, why are you staying in LA? Like, you're so young. Move to Kansas City. You know what I mean? Like, go somewhere where there's hope. And she's like, I really like the grocery stores. She named the grocery store. I can't remember the name, but apparently it's like some hoity-toity grocery store. I'm like, well, there's a quarter of your budget right there. So anyways, a lot of people do want to live in California. And so they're attracted to someone who's going to come in and clean up the streets.
I mean, his odds are going up. We'll see. This is a really uphill battle for him, but I think Republicans should be taking copious notes, because you just got to embrace common sense and be normal. And he is calling out the fact that leftists in LA seem to be fine with letting people, shoot up in front of schools. They're fine with dogs getting injected with fentanyl. They're doing nothing. And he's calling out some very obvious things that the vast majority of Americans can agree on. And he's going viral because of it. People want common sense.
Is this common sense for real? Like, as an LA voter, as someone that will vote for mayor in Los Angeles, I'm telling you, this is the opposite of common sense. This is so embarrassing. I am so exhausted of being surrounded by this level of idiocy. This guy is not practical. His man's plan was to live up his reality fame. When that dwindled, he wanted to be an influencer. When that dwindled, he tried to make his wife a singer. It didn't work, so now he's going to be mayor of LA. He says he's going to end corruption. How? He says he's going to have no more homeless. How? He says he's going to have renters' rights. How? I'm so sick of having politicians come in here with zero experience telling us they're going to fix everything. Have we learned nothing?
Let me just play
It's embarrassing.
what his retort to you
Need some
would
candy
be.
or something.
Well, I mean, we do have a mayor that has been classically trained in socialism and communism down in Cuba, right? Mayor Karen Bass.
Perfect fit.
Yeah, perfect fit. I mean, she has a plan. Take from the rich, give to the bureaucrats, and let the poor suffer. I mean, clearly, like,
all right.
total common sense. It makes perfect sense every time you look at it. If that's the attitude,
Why was she so mad and unhinged?
Because Spencer Pratt makes sense.
Ugh.
You want to piss off a communist, put a mirror on their face, show them what they're doing and how it doesn't work. It's like the dumbest thing I've ever seen. This is something that Gary mentioned in the episode we recorded on Saturday, which take back your county. You can follow the channel. Please do. If you subscribe to this channel already, just go look at our page and look at channels. You'll see Take Back Your Country, Take Back Your County, excuse me. And on any podcast player, you can find it as well. There's no episodes up yet, but go ahead and subscribe, turn on your notifications so you get them when they come on. But the socialists and the communists, they always think their program will work. And when it doesn't work, then they have this go-to excuse all the time that, hey, it just wasn't done right. Or, hey, you know, if we just did it this way, it would work this time. Oh, we just need a new committee or a new plan. It will never, ever work. It's just, it's one of those things that you can't really get around. Here's an example here, right? Socialists, they're
the thing that I keep getting it distilled down to is they keep thinking that it'll work if we can get everybody to forced into it.
And they're never accountable for their bad ideas. Right. They can always blame it off on someone else. Someone with a business background, the buck stops there, right? If you have a bad CEO, he makes bad decisions. If you're the Bud Light marketing person and you hire Dylan Mulvaney to push Bud Light to a bunch of frat boys,
it's your fault.
It's your fault. You get fired. You have to change your marketing ad. Next thing you know, it's American flags and Clydesdales everywhere. Yep. You know what I mean? Like you got to course correct. But when you're a socialist, and a lot of socialists, they come out of academia and they really do have a mental illness. They have a hero complex. Here's a really good breakdown of what happens in these cities where we have socialists that run the place. And socialists today go by the name Democrat. And I apologize for those of you that may or may not be listening to the show, probably not a lot of you, that are Democrats that are like, this isn't what I thought it was. And listen, I sympathize. I was a conservative Democrat. I came out of college. I have a political science degree. My family all thought I was nuts because I was liberal. Really, I was a classical liberal, right? But you say the word liberal to a mature person and they're like, well, that's a problem because they have life experience, right? In college, they get you to buy in on Jeffersonian liberalism and then they loop you into socialism as if it's one thing. They shouldn't be one thing, although today the label liberal is just a dog whistle to socialism. And it is a mental illness.
Have you ever wondered why so many intellectuals and academics are often left-leaning and drawn to socialism? Well, it has to do with a hero complex. There's an economist by the name of Joseph Schumpeter, and he explained this really well in one of his books, Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy. He explained that highly developed industrialized capitalist societies create enough abundance to produce a large quantity of these intellectual class. And these people are like journalists, college professors, lawyers, political theorists, academics, and they're often very resentful of capitalism. And this resentment usually stems from the fact that capitalism mostly rewards entrepreneurs, inventors, merchants, and businessmen, people who actually produce real goods and services for society. It doesn't do much to reward these intellectuals because most of them don't produce anything. Their products are usually ideas, critiques, and theories about society and how it should function. And because they don't actually solve any real problems, their easiest path to influence for them is by criticizing capitalism. Think of people like Michel Foucault, Noam Chomsky, Herbert Marcuse, and most notably Karl Marx. And because they believe that they're actually smarter than most people, they often feel that capitalism doesn't properly reward them for their intellect. But under socialism, it will be different because they'll be more valuable. And since socialism needs a lot of bureaucrats, experts, economic planners, ideologues, and guiding intellectuals. So it gives them the starting role that they don't have in a market economy. And on top of that, they also don't suffer the consequences of their own failed ideologies. You see, unlike an engineer who's built a bad product, you can see it in real time if that product works or not. And if it doesn't, then you have to go back and try to fix it. But for these intellectuals, their product is their ideas. So they can be catastrophically wrong and then still get to keep their careers. And if their ideologies and predictions fail, they can always write a new essay explaining why it wasn't real socialism or that somebody implemented it wrong. So because they have no skin in the game, there's no limit to what they can come up with.
And that describes it perfectly. Yeah. And that's why you see these cities that are full of educated people. One thing about California, a lot of education. A lot of abundance, a lot of success. Same thing here in Washington State, same thing in Oregon, same thing in the Northeast, New York, et cetera, right? A lot of abundance. So you have this class of people who can grift off that abundance: university professors, bureaucrats, think takers, lobbyists, et cetera. And they get this hero complex, like, I know better because I've got more education than the pipe fitter or the plumber or the electrician. And you can see this. Just look at the way these people talk about those people, like they're just a cog in society that doesn't know anything. Does that make sense? And so when their plans don't work, when the streets are full of crap in San Francisco and LA, when you have medieval viruses in homeless encampments, why do we even have homeless encampments? Why do we have drug use? Oh, it's because they're unhoused. Okay, well, let's give them houses. And then we find out they're using drugs in the houses that we provide for them, right? A couple weeks back, we played the little, it wasn't really undercover video, but independent journalism that went into one of the homeless encampments in Seattle. And they've got a tiny house village that's nearby. And you look inside these tiny houses, it's literally like a folding chair and needles. Okay. And how much did that tiny house cost? Oh, about $200,000. Because, you know, by the time you paid the bureaucrat and all these other people to implement this idea, what do we get? We get institutionalized drug shelters. It's insanity. If you keep doing the same thing you've always done, that is normally defined as the definition of insanity. But it's also conservatism, where we don't realize what you're up against, right? These people will morph and change every time to try to get power. They'll say conservatives don't have a plan. You know what Spencer Pratt's plan is in LA? Enforce the law.
Yeah.
That's it. There are laws on the books to deal with all of this.
If I was to somehow get into office up here in Washington, that would be my plan too. You know, enforce the law.
Enforce the law. Yeah, exactly. Enforce the law. John Atakis already said hi to you. Good. Pray the Rosary Daily. Good morning. Carlitos, you made it. Morning. Glad you're here. Carlito and Tiffany. Good morning, y'all, over on YouTube. Pray the Rosary Daily. Really bad laws against homeowners in California. Squatting is a tenant strategy. It really is.
Yeah.
You know, you can pretty much stay in your house longer as a squatter than as a renter that is defaulted on his rent. So may as well not pay the first month's rent.
I think there might be YouTube channels
Administrator,
out
I want
there.
to ask you what the...
Go ahead.
Oh, I think there might be YouTube channels out there that teach people how to squat that are more popular than our show.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, we played a clip of one of these a while back that was talking about basically how he got like 3 years of free rent by using free legal aid and all these other little tactics.
And abusing some landlord.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. I remember when I was really heavy into real estate at the auctions, you know, a lot of people would come in there with this idea like the path to success is rentals.
Right.
Like, not in Washington State.
No.
I mean, first of all, our values are too high. You can't rent for what the house, you know, what would make sense ROI wise on the deal.
Instantly underwater.
Yeah, instantly underwater. But also,
and probably have to hire yourself a legal team to protect yourself from the state.
Dude, that's what it was. It was like you couldn't defend yourself against tenants. Better off just putting it on the market. There are buyers out there. You know, why not just sell the house?
Yeah.
Marizo says, Mom's here. Oh, so glad you made it, Mom. Isn't that great? My mom and dad tune in every day for the show. It's like our biggest fans, next to Carlito and Ponyboy and Pray the Rosary Daily and all the rest of you guys that show up bright and early, 6:30 a.m. Monday through Friday Pacific time. Okay. Over in Tehran, obviously, we still have an issue with the Strait of Hormuz. Now, to the doomers out there, they're like, Trump's dragging us into an endless war. It might be an endless blockade at this point, right? Which does affect the world economy for sure. But we're not putting boots on the ground yet at this point. Although Trump does reserve the right, you know, at this stage. But one of the things that has been coming up is the price of gasoline and the price of oil. Now, I can't say that oil companies aren't in some way, shape, or form engaged in gouging.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, definitely. But you have to also consider the fact that even with the price of oil right now elevated, it's at what has been the average over the Obama and Biden terms.
Yeah.
So we hold Trump to a certain standard that we have to lower oil prices, but we don't hold the Democrat socialists to that same concern. Why? Oh, because the intellectual class is pushing environmental causes. And don't you want to save the environment? I mean, at this point, Trump should just come out and say, like, look, high prices are good because there's less smog. Why aren't you guys happy? you know, why not? Why not take what they've been shoving down our throats for decades and turn around and use it against them? Look, all these ships coming out of the Hormuz, look, they're not polluting anymore. Those are all run on crude oil. You know, they can do whatever they wanted. Market 967 says, good morning from Wisconsin. Welcome. And I hear out in Wisconsin, you guys got the cows on the field in the pasture. So that's kind of fun. We got little cheeseburgers up in Michigan. We got some hamburguesas up in Wisconsin. I love our peasants. They really are peasants. A lot of you guys are just salt of the earth. So here's Lee Zeldin on Fox News talking a little bit about the Straits of Hormuz and the blockade there, but also talking about the fact that the United States has increased its oil production. So when this is over, there will be an end at some point. We are going to reap the rewards big time.
Administrator, I want to ask you what the question that so many Americans have at home right now, because they hear the president say, once this is all over, gas prices are going to go down. In fact, we might even be in a better position because we're going to be, maybe the world's looking to us for more oil production, and maybe we'll finally resolve this issue with Middle Eastern oil once and for all. What can they look forward to, not only later this summer, but heading into the fall, the winter? What do you project for those Americans who are a little concerned right now when they fill up?
I would point to a recent trip that I made to Tokyo, the White House National Energy Dominance Council. I was with Secretary Berger and other leaders of the Trump administration. And it was a meeting amongst 17 leaders of the Indo-Pacific nations, a lot of U.S. companies, and the energy ministers from a lot of these other countries. They are seeing what is happening in the Middle East, and they desire to diversify their energy sources like never before. You take a country like Japan, where it takes them 28 days to get their supply from the Middle East, and they haven't had freedom of navigation. And then they look to the United States, where they have been getting supplies for a very long time. It only takes 8 days to get to Japan, and there's always been total freedom of navigation. A lot of these countries, if you want to start talking midterm, long-term.
So this is really interesting here. Obviously, the Strait of Hormuz has traditionally supplied about 20% of the world's oil, but it's not a safe neighborhood, right? It's not a safe neighborhood. Don't send your nicest boats over there. There's literally Somali pirates in the Indian Ocean as you come out of the Strait of Hormuz. You've got Iranian thugs in the Strait of Hormuz. You have a lot of back channeling stuff, and it takes ultimately 28 days to get the oil out of the Strait of Hormuz. But if you're a Japanese company or an Indonesian company or a South Korean company that established a trade route there long ago when they were pumping 50% of the oil supply, you didn't get it from the United States because there wasn't a supply to get, right? We were supplying the Western Hemisphere and our domestic needs. But over Trump's 2 terms now, he has increased domestic oil production to the point to where we are a net exporter of oil. We crossed that threshold, by the way, for the first time in like 60 years, right? When in Trump's first term. Do you remember that? All of a sudden, hey, we're a net exporter of energy. We're not getting our oil out of the Middle East. So if OPEC wants to burn us, it won't affect us nearly as bad. Like, we will never have gas lines again. We have supply, right? That was the thing. In the 1970s, we had gas lines because we didn't have enough product to sell. That's what led the pricing to go up.
Prior to this time, that was a real threat problem.
That was a real threat problem. So now with this disruption in Hormuz, he's got talking about these 27 Asian countries are like, hey, you know, now that the supply line's broken, we can get it from the U.S. They've got the supply to sell. We can redo that trade. It's actually a shorter distance.
Everybody's saying that. They're all like, we got options.
We got options. We got options. So when this blockade lifts and the Strait of Hormuz eventually opens up, a lot of these buyers of oil aren't going to go back, right? They're not going to go back.
Vision into the future, this is going to be a very good thing. Unleashing energy dominance is not just about ramping up a domestic supply here at home for Americans, but also being in a stronger position and be able to export to these other countries that want it.
On that topic, we have seen this litigated in multiple administrations, the Keystone XL pipeline. And EPA was often, the environmental hazards was often the justification, and usually, or at least in the end, it seemed that was really not a good excuse. It just came down to politics. Would we be in a different place today if the Keystone XL pipeline had been finished and the Biden administration didn't essentially stop it for good?
Okay, the Keystone XL pipeline. The history of this was they spent almost 20 years getting permits. The Keystone XL pipeline comes out of Canada, comes down through North and South Dakota, and dumps off somewhere at a refinery in the Midwest or wherever it was. And they spent almost 20 years getting permits. Trump came into office and he issued the permit right away. So they were near completion. Okay. They built this thing. And this is where you got was it Standing Rock protests, where you had a bunch of Antifa people show up to try to say, you're putting this oil pipeline through Indian land, and that whole deal.
Yep.
So when Biden came into office, despite the fact that the union that supports the pipeline workers endorsed Joe Biden, the first day in office, he canceled the permit. And then within about 6 months, the company that was behind the Keystone Pipeline construction said, we're done. We're never coming back. We're not even going to try. So there is literally a empty pipeline running across Canada, dumping off into the United States with a cap on the end. It will never be used. It's private property and they are done. No interest in coming back and finishing it. That was a huge, that was what started the price increase because futures depended on that pipeline being finished.
Yeah. Good job, Joe.
And the justification was, well, this is bad for the environment. Simultaneously, Joe Biden approved a similar pipeline over in Afghanistan and Myanmar and a couple other countries over there. Same type of pipeline, same type of environmental impact, totally approved it.
Totally different environment, Taylor. That's a different planet.
Yeah, we don't care about people over there. You know, who cares that the Ganges River is full of sewage? Who cares that China produces most of the world's pollution? Right? Not our problem, not our backyard. So that is another one of those examples where, you know, the Biden administration, the Democrats, the socialists, they just think they're better than us. They think that we don't matter. They think that our prices don't matter, that we will. This is Ayn Rand's argument all the time. We cannibalize ourselves on behalf of the universal collective without actually realizing we're killing ourselves in the process, right? God's Army Brett says Trump's first term showed us he could lower gas prices. Trump says he cares about the people. High gas prices affect those that speaks to most. I agree. I don't like the high gas prices either, but, and I'll just use the talking point. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Even if this blockade continued on, for another 6 months, another year, gas prices will start to come down. Why? Venezuela is still ramping up. That Houston refinery is still taking orders. The new one that they just opened up for the first time in 50 years is still taking orders. Like, there will come a point where there will be new stasis. Guess who else is coming online? Russia. By the way, we have a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine that might be the end of that war. And there's been a lot of talk about trying to normalize relations with Russia. So even if that blockade continues with Iran, it hurts China more than it hurts us. It's just a matter of time. You know, you've got the Nord Stream pipeline that they could literally just, it was what, 3 feet from being connected, and Ted Cruz blocked it. So, you know, it's something there, something to that. Let's continue on here.
Yeah, I would just add up all of the different projects that have been slow walked, the plants that were forced to shut down, the regulations that resulted in raising costs. It happened during the Obama administration. It continued through the Biden administration. We have been fixing that since we came in here just over a year ago. We are doing more deregulation at EPA in 1 year than has ever been done across all federal agencies of entire presidencies. We're keeping plants online that were slated to close. We've had groundbreaking for new pipelines to deliver supplies. We have seen new small modular reactors, ground being broken for them as well. And so many more projects and investments on the horizon. You add all these projects up together, the United States is obviously going to be stronger for it.
The United States will end up being stronger for it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Trump at some point tells gas companies that they need to do their part to drop prices, stop the gouging effect that happens. Now, I know here in Washington State, if we just reverted back to the tax prices that we had when Trump took office, we'd be what, 70, 80 cents less per gallon?
Yeah, easy.
Easy, maybe more. I mean, it's a significant deal. The other consideration there too, and this was rumored over the weekend, is Trump is considering suspending the national gas tax, which I don't know what that is, 20, 30 cents a gallon, something like that. I mean, it's significant. It's not as much as some of the states like Washington State or California put on, but that could bring prices down a little bit too. Moving on here, Trump also posted this. This is kind of an interesting little deal here. I love Justice Neil Gorsuch. He's a really smart and good man, but he voted against me and our country on tariffs, a devastating move. How do I reconcile this? So bad and hurtful to our country. I have, likewise, always liked and respected Amy Coney Barrett, but the same thing with her. They were appointed by me and yet have hurt our country so badly. I do not believe they meant to do so, but their decision on tariffs cost the United States $159 billion that we have to pay back to enemies and people, companies and countries that have been ripping us off for years. It's hardly believable. They could have solved that situation with a tiny sentence. Any money paid by others to the United States does not have to be paid back. Why wouldn't they have done so? With certain Republican nominated justices that we have on the Supreme Court, the Democrats don't really need to pack the court any longer. In fact, I should be the one wanting to pack the court. I'm working so hard to make America great again. And then people that I appointed have shown so little respect to our country and its people. What is the reason for this? They have to do the right thing, but it's really okay for them to be loyal to the person that appointed them to almost the highest position in the land. That is a justice of the United States Supreme Court. Democrat justices always remain true to the people that honored them for that very special nomination. They don't waver, no matter how good or bad a case may be. But Republican justices often go out of their way to oppose me because they want to show how, quote, independent or above it all they are. I get elected in a landslide, including winning the popular vote, all 7 swing states and electoral college clobbering, and all U.S. counties by 86%, 2,750 to 525. I chose people to help our country, not hurt it. And now, based on what I witnessed recently by being the first president in history to attend a Supreme Court session, which fact was not even recognized or acknowledged out of respect for the position of president by the court, something which did not go unnoticed by the fake news media, they will be ruling against us on birthright citizenship, making us the only country in the world that practices this unsustainable, unsafe, and incredibly costly disaster. I don't want loyalty, but I do want and expect it from our country. Yes, for our country. Yes, I have another way of doing tariffs, but it is far slower and more laborious than what was just determined in a close decision to be illegal or unconstitutional. With 3 powerful and highly accurate dissents, well, maybe Neil and Amy just had a really bad day, but our country can only handle so many decisions of that magnitude before it breaks down and cracks. Sometimes decisions have to be allowed to use good, strong common sense as a guide. A negative ruling on birthright citizenship on top of the recent Supreme Court tariff catastrophe is not economically sustainable for the United States of America. President Donald J. Trump.
Wow.
What do you think about that?
That was a story.
Yeah. Yeah, he hits on tariffs, right? But he also hits on this birthright citizenship. And he says they will decide against him on the birthright citizenship. Do you think he knows something we don't know? Or do you think he's just priming the well a little bit?
I think he knows something.
It'll be really interesting if he starts packing the Supreme Court. I wonder if that'll make the Democrats backtrack on that.
Oh, yeah.
Could be interesting. He does bring that up. And it really is that threat historically going all the way back to FDR was a significant impetus to get the Supreme Court to act a certain direction. There's something about them up there with their 9 seats and the history of the 9 seats, which is not written in the Constitution.
Nope,
that's just the way it is. There's something in there about that these guys really want to have. It makes them very, very important. And if you dilute that, or you do something where every president gets to appoint 3 people and they serve for, so many years, or there's all kinds of different things they can do. There's even been proposals of having let every president appoint 3, and then you only allow 15 to vote. And so then certain ones have to sit on the sideline, or they have to pick which 15 get the vote.
They have to get benched.
They have to get benched. Exactly. So it could be really interesting where that could go. gosh, the birthright citizenship is one of those things that we just kind of grew up believing was the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you really do look at it, you're like, oh, hold on a second here. Under the jurisdiction thereof, that's a de jure jurisdiction. That's not a de facto jurisdiction. That should be something that has to do with, your parents were under the jurisdiction of the state. So if your parents are illegal, this whole birthright tourism problem, they shouldn't just be citizens because you were standing on American soil and popped out a baby, especially when you're gaming the system. And I totally, completely buy into the argument that the founding fathers did not conceive of the idea that 8 billion people around the planet could be a 12-hour plane ride from the United States. You know what I'm saying? Like,
what if you pop out a kid on an American cruise ship?
Yeah. What's interesting is we allow citizenship to parents that are under the jurisdiction of the United States who have children born on foreign soil.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 2 siblings who were born in Japan. They're citizens because my parents are citizens.
Mm-hmm.
I know quite a few people whose parents had them while they were living in Canada. They're not Canadian, they're American, right? So our country is really weird. You can have somebody of foreign citizenship not under our jurisdiction, aside from if you commit a criminal offense, then the United States has jurisdiction over the matter, right? And they can loop you into it as a foreign national. But your children that are born here have full citizenship status. That doesn't make any sense. And again, we're the only country on the planet that does that. Trump had a really good, Carlite said, we should do reciprocal birthright citizenship. How would that work out? Birthright citizenship. Yeah. If you're born here to parents that are of another nation, we will declare their children citizens of the other country, and then we can deport them back. Is that what that means?
I don't know.
I don't know. All right, we'll just force them to take them back. That's really what it should be. I understand if the Supreme Court came out and said, okay, as of this ruling, everybody who has achieved citizenship by the former regime of birthright citizenship, how do you go unravel that? That could be really complicated. Right. But if you say from this point forward, the parents have to be under the jurisdiction of the United States, which means legal, green card, domiciled, resident, whatever legal status you have to be here, which you surrender jurisdiction. When you apply for a green card, you come under the jurisdiction of the United States. When you fly here as a visa holder for tourism, you're not under the jurisdiction thereof. You have a pass. You have a hall pass.
Can we also say speak English?
Speak English. Yes. Oh man.
And it's not just to be an a-hole. It's like, I'm getting tired of spending zillions of dollars on 50 different languages for pamphlets,
Dude, I went to the Seattle building department years ago.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh my goodness. They have so much wall space dedicated to stupid pamphlets in different languages.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's almost hard to find the one in English.
It's like, who's paying for all these?
Dude, it's unreal.
Oh, wait. I'm paying for them. This is retarded.
You want to have a real awakening? Go down to the passport office in Seattle and sit in there. It's like nothing but hijabs and let's just say not traditional white Americans in the passport office. It's something to behold. Okay, so this is Donald Trump. He sat down with Cheryl Atkinson with Full Measure. I always like to, when we have these prominent reporters, I like to have everybody understand who these people are. Cheryl Atkinson is one of the literally handful of journalists in our country that's worth their medal. That when they report on things, they're reporting on things from a position of fact. Okay. And she is the journalist when she was working at CBS News that broke the Fast and the Furious story. This is where Barack Obama was, through Eric Holder, was trafficking guns to the cartel. And then one of those guns got used to kill a Border Patrol agent. And when they found out the gun, when they got the guy and they got the gun, they're like, whoa, this was bought from a store in Texas. And then you find out it's part of this Fast and Furious deal that Eric Holder was running through the ATF. And so Eric Holder ultimately got called into Congress to testify, refused to come in, and he was the first ever Attorney General of the United States that was held in contempt of Congress. Did the DOJ pick up the case? No, of course. So he was just held in contempt, and it just kind of sat there, and it was a big nothing burger. But Cheryl Atkins is the one who broke that story. The story that Eric Holder would not come into Congress and talk about. that resulted in the death of a Border Patrol agent. As a result of that, she got spied on. The deep state came after her.
Of course.
And one of the things they did was they tapped her phone lines, they tapped her internet. There's a whistleblower named Jonathan McGreevy that was teamed up with a Secret Service cyber agent named Sean Bridges. They went out to her house dressed up as the internet company, and they literally put like a second connection on her house. So they had full access to what she was doing on the internet. Simultaneously to that, or in the process of doing that, they also planted child pornography on her husband's computer.
Oh, jeez.
So her husband gets arrested for child pornography. And it's on a laptop that has a bunch of CBS stuff on it. So CBS is now looped in on this, and they pay for forensic analysis that determines that the child pornography was never opened on his computer, but it was planted there, and it originated from a government IP address.
No kidding.
So then his case was dropped. Okay. She sued the Department of Justice saying, hey, we want discovery. We want to know where this came from. And a judge dismissed the case and basically said, I'm not going to give you a carte blanche warrant to go fishing. You need to find out who planted it, and then I'll give you the warrant to go figure out where it came from. So the case kind of died, and maybe she's still working it through the courts, but it kind of ended there. Meanwhile, of course, CBS was like, hey, we don't want a reporter that's actually reporting on news that causes her to be the target of the deep state. And so they fired her. So she eventually made her way over to work alongside John Solomon at Just the News. And she still has a show on TV on Sundays called Full Measure. She is, again, one of these really good reporters. And she's covered all kinds of stuff. COVID vaccine errors. She's covered some election issues. She's one of the very few reporters that when she has a report, she's worth listening to. She sat down with Donald Trump. And again, here's another example of they know this information. Okay. They know this information, but the mainstream news will not tell it to you. When we talk about Venezuela and we talk about Iran and we talk about Cuba and China, we have to also acknowledge election meddling.
On Venezuela and voter fraud, there are Venezuelan engineer whistleblowers who have provided your administration, my understanding is, with a lot of information and documentation alleging vote rigging in the U.S. elections, including in 2020, through an operation engineered in part by our foreign adversaries and centered in Venezuela. Are you familiar with this information, and is anything going to come of that?
Yeah, a little bit. And, well, I'm familiar with voter fraud because we have a lot of it, I believe, coming up on the 2020 election. The 2020 election was rigged. You know, when I used to say that, they'd say, oh, the cameras would turn off. How can you say? Now they don't turn. The information, a lot of it's already out there. The election was rigged. It was rigged. You look at Georgia, you look at Pennsylvania, you look at these states, they were rigged. It was a rigged election. And they used COVID to do it, and they used crooked, dirty cops to do it. You know, they had dirty cops. And like you read about Comey, Comey's a dirty cop, bad guy, bad for the country, bad guy. But no, the 2020 election was rigged. Anytime you have mail-in voting, you're going to have a rigged election. Anytime you're not using voter ID, the Democrats don't want, they're fighting us on the Save America Act. Anytime you don't have, when somebody says we don't want voter identification, that means they want to cheat. Then they say we don't want citizenship. We don't want proof of citizenship. They don't want it to be a part of the voting process. And yet, when it comes to voting, the interesting thing is 97% of the Republicans want voter ID. But if you add the Republicans and the Democrats together, 86% want. Jimmy Carter, I mean, I wasn't a big fan of him as a president, but Jimmy Carter had a committee that was set up, and along with Scoop Jackson, some very respected people. And the primary finding of the committee on the election stuff, primary finding of the committee was you can't have mail-in voting, it's crooked.
Can't have mail-in voting, it's crooked. I want to show this little clip right here. This is another example of voter fraud. And again, voter fraud is a big, big issue. There's a lot of people that think it's isolated to the machines, and there's another camp that think it's isolated to the mail-in ballots. And the truth of the matter is it's all of the above. Here's this is a clip from let's see, when did this come out? I can't remember. It was like 2021, 2022, somewhere around there. And it was down in Texas. And this woman did, in fact, get indicted by Ken Paxton. When this video dropped, she got investigated and she did get indicted. Now the charges are ridiculous compared to what you hear her saying. They basically caught her on a handful of these vote fraud cases, vote fraud allegations, but it stuck. But when you listen to her talking, this is what's going on behind the scenes with activists, these bureaucrats that get involved in elections, these different NGOs and these different vote getters. Listen to this.
This week, we introduce you to Raquel Rodriguez and her illegal election law activities in San Antonio, Texas. Well, there is more. Listen carefully as she tells our undercover journalist the cost of buying votes.
I've got 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, and the rest are Democrats.
Okay.
So,
notice how she says she's got Democrats, the rest, the plurality, but she has Republicans that are engaging in this practice. Do you want to know why the Senate won't pass the Save America Act?
how much money are we talking? Because just so you'll know, when you do things like this for votes, you're talking between $5 to $8 per vote. I'm just letting you know, so you have an idea. And I'm going to bring 3,500 to the plate.
Okay.
County-wide. So I know what I bring.
That's enough to flip most county elections, by the way. Board of Commissioners, city councils, mayor, totally enough to flip it.
To the plate county-wide. So that's like $28,000. Like model right now. He said, okay, Raquel, if you were running, what would you do? So he sat me down and I said, I would do this, and this. He said, how much money do you think you would think? And I budgeted everything, right? Okay, boom, you do it. So he was paying me $5,000 a month, and now he's paying me $8,000 a month. Why? Because I took in this extra job.
So between you and me, I've got 4 judges that are calling me right now. And this is what they're asking me. And they're like, we want to be a part of this group. So if we pay you $3,500 each, that's like $12,000, dude. For those 3 judges that I'm talking about, and that's Renee Yanta, Nicole Garza, right? They're paying me $3,500, me $3,500 to make sure that their name is on the ballot.
That's a primary election. Judges, Republicans, Democrats.
How much could the city council raise cost?
I gave you my total. It's $5,000 a month for me, $8,000 for Tom.
Yep, $8,000 a month.
$8,000 for our two.
How many months will it go to?
7.
It's $56,000
probably. And then 2 months. 2 months of early voting. 2 months of early voting is my people's 5 to 7. That's
Under Texas code, it's illegal to harvest ballots. It also is illegal to pay others to ballot harvest. Ballot harvesting is a felony if done with 3 or more people.
When we asked about buying votes for U.S. Senate candidate MJ Hagar and candidate Biden, here's what she had to say.
The top ticket to get votes for either. How many votes you think you can deliver for us?
at least 5,000.
What are you looking at as far as how much that's going to cost?
For the entire team that I'm looking at 55,000.
So $55,000 or 5,000 votes out to get either Biden.
If not more, I'm not going to overpromise because remember, we're 16 days till election day. You can give me cash, you can do whatever you want to do.
$55,000 upfront.
That's right. Cash. Yeah, I'm getting the Biden vote out, but I mean, I'm not going to do it for free. In other words, if they don't pay me, I'm like, excuse me, that's another worry I don't have to worry about.
You said it was like $5 or $8 per vote. How many votes? I mean, how much are we looking at roughly?
Shoot, you know what? It's $8 per vote, but I would say like right now, I'd say $5 to $6. Let's say $6 per vote. Okay. Let's not go $8. Okay. Let's say 6 votes, $6 per vote, okay. Right? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to bring you 5,000 votes.
5,000.
And the video goes on and on and on. Doesn't that make your blood boil? Doesn't that make doesn't it give you goosebumps to think that there are Democrats and Republicans? Why won't they pass the Save America Act? Well, where do you think they're getting a lot of these ballots that they're getting? What's been going on down there at the southern border? Has it been like wide open? Why has it been wide open? Why has it been wide open, Ron?
I don't know.
Every county. She's just fleecing over a county. If I was in that county, I would just assume that none of my elected officials, including the judges, may not be fairly elected. And what did Trump say? Everywhere you have mail-in ballots, you have at least that kind of fraud. On top of the fact that Cheryl said there was also a Venezuelan angle. And what were they doing? Sending people up through the Darien Gap and into our country. And what else were they doing? They rigged our voting machines. They created them. So why open borders?
As straightforward as securing the border seemed to be once you got into office, it almost implies that another president could reverse it as quickly. Is there any way to protect against that in the future?
Yeah, vote Republican.
As straightforward as securing the border seemed to be once
vote
you got into
Republican
office.
and pray that your Republican is the one buying ballots. Oh, now the Democrats over in LA, which is one of the biggest recipients of illegal aliens, also, and I don't have this clip, but one of the things that has in fact been happening is other states will bus their homeless population to Los Angeles. Okay, this happens. I had a video teed up that I decided not to do for the sake of time. I know, pretty rare that I consider time on this podcast. It was a longer video, but to get to the meat of it, we had to get way too deep in the video. But it was a couple that was bussed from Houston or Austin, Texas to Las Vegas. They were flown, excuse me, I said bus. They were flown. They were bought a ticket and then flown to Burbank, California, where they were basically walking around looking for a homeless encampment. And what has Project Veritas been doing? They were releasing a whole bunch of videos on Skid Row with the homeless population made up of citizens and not-citizens, basically getting their signatures, registering them to vote so that they could harvest their ballot. Which explains why in the mayoral debate in LA, there were responses about, do you support or do you want U.S. citizens not to vote?
Non-citizens, should they be allowed to vote in local elections? Is this a yes or no, Mr. Pratt?
No.
Mayor Bass?
It depends. It's not a yes or no.
Depends on what?
Well, first of all, when you say non-citizens, it doesn't mean they're here illegal. It doesn't mean they're undocumented. They could have green cards. They could be here perfectly legal. And there's a lot of states and cities that do that on very, very local elections. We have to see what the councilman is proposing.
Councilmember Bremen.
Yeah, I would say, again, it does depend. In other places, school boards have non-citizens.
Yes or no?
Non-citizens who vote
Mr. Pratt, I have a question for you. You told NBC News.
Democrats are in trouble. By the way, Spencer Pratt's a nice guy, and he's fine. He's no genius. You don't need to be a genius. It's basically he's in a debate with two women that have tag team to up the city as badly as you could possibly it up in the last decade. So that's what they've been up to. So that's an easy one, right? Because you just go, hey, look at the piece of shit city you guys have been presiding over. You won. But it's also, imagine doing like a math debate, right? And it's just me and you go, and I got my other two partners up there I'm debating against. And then the guy from Telemundo, he goes, question to all the people on stage. What's 2 + 2? And I go, 4. And then all my other people on stage go, well, it's a complicated question. Now, it depends if we're doing metric or standard. And you're like, why am I winning this debate? Because you guys can't answer the question. And you can't answer the question because Democrats, they painted themselves into a corner, which is all of their thoughts are radical and nobody wants them. Nobody wants women and men competing together in sports. Nobody wants a wide open border. Nobody wants illegals running through their city, selling fentanyl and human trafficking. All the shit your left flank wants, nobody wants. But you have to run and you're trying to get popular votes. So you can't piss off your left flank, but you want to get elected. So that means you have to pretend weird like, no, we don't want illegals voting. Yeah. But you can't just say no. Now, Spencer Pratt can just say no because the people support him don't want that. And when they go, we want the border shut. Yes, I want the border shut. I don't want men competing in women. No, I don't want that. It's easy. But when you ask it to Gavin Newsom, he's in trouble because he has the sensible answer that 90% of America agrees with. And then there's this left lunatic flank that he has to kowtow to.
Don't say this.
And the thing is the left lunatic flank is well funded. They're well funded. This weekend on my little street corner by my grocery store that I go to every day, there was a no Kigs protest.
Oh, boy.
Without exception, every person on that corner was over 60 years old. Without exception. Okay. These are people that are dyed in the wool, true blue, vote blue, no matter who people. And sometimes I wonder, you're only as good as the information you get. Do they really think that a king would allow that protest to happen? What the heck? But it was put on by a group here in Kitsap County called Indivisible Kitsap. Indivisible is a George Soros funded organization, and they're paired up with Code Pink.
Okay? Oh boy.
So they get some Neville Singham money as well. And whoever the organizers of the I got the hiccups. Whoever the organizers of that are get paid. And they have a mailing list, an email list here in the county of about 14,000 people. There's 250,000 people in this county plus. Okay. So they got about 14,000 people that are that left flank, and they will show up to a protest. Why? I don't know. They drink the blue Kool-Aid, and it wasn't laced with arsenic, so they're not dead yet. Okay. But they showed up at this protest. Again, mostly older people. And I'm looking at that street corner, and I say to my wife, I've always assumed that these are just diehards, but I'm starting to wonder if they're actually paid, because we are hearing that more and more, that the left-wing protesters often are actually getting paid minimum wage to go stand a street corner. If you have nothing better to do with your Saturday, yeah, let's go make $65 or whatever and stand on the corner for 3 hours with a No Kings sign or whatever the case is.
Yeah, then go get some dinner.
And where are they getting that money? From the organizers that are getting paid the bigger money.
Huh.
Yet a Republican protest, I didn't get paid to go to January 6th. Okay. I went of my own free will and choice and paid dearly for it, by the way. It was very expensive for me to go to that. Now, a lot of the talking points that these No Kings people are pounding on, one of them is gas prices. I understand gas prices affect everybody. Another one is the war in Iran. I understand Trump ran on not having more endless wars. This might be the war to end war. I don't know. We'll see. But he did run on that. And so you see the left wing who doesn't care about this. They had no problem with Barack Obama starting a war in Syria that most Americans, in fact, the libertarian candidate, Johnson was his name, didn't even know what Aleppo was in a nationally televised interview. What's Aleppo? What's Aleppo? That's where Joe Kent's wife died, was in Syria, right? What's Aleppo? The libertarians, completely unaware of what Barack Obama was doing overseas. Libya? Anyone? Libya? How about pulling out of Iraq and then going right back in with bigger numbers? How about doing nothing to end the Afghanistan war? The left, no problem with that. No problem with that. But Trump gets into office, runs on no war, and they use it as a pry bar. Trump gets into office, gas prices go up to comparable rates that they were under Biden and Obama. Pry bar goes up. You've got these talking points. Trump comes in and closes the border, and all of a sudden you have another wing of extremism. It's the libertarians. What libertarians are to conservatives is the exact same thing that the far left communists are to blue dog Democrats. It's like, yeah, we need your votes, but we really don't want you around. The greatest example of this is Thomas Massey. Now, podcaster John Doyle did an amazing podcast on Thomas Massey. Now, I've expressed my opinions on Thomas Massey. Guy drives me crazy. I really appreciate what he's done for January 6th. Truly do. But on many, many other issues, I've thought, dude, you have missed the mark entirely. You can't come out and be like, I'm pro Make America Great Again with Donald Trump, who is slashing regulations, redoing the entire world order, re-dollarizing the economy, and then turn around and have a press conference along with Marjorie Taylor Greene that has pictures of Donald Trump, the pedophile, in the background, and be like, I'm trying to support the president. Why won't he just disclose this information? Right? It's like, it doesn't even make sense. And Donald Trump has called him a total sleazebag and one of the worst ever. Why is that? Here's why.
Well, Thomas Massey is just a principled constitutionalist. That is why he votes the way that he does. You'll hear this one from Massey supporters quite often. Let me let you in on a little secret. The Constitution does not actually outline policy positions or specific beliefs for people to hold. The Constitution outlines the structure, functions, and powers of our government. Please show me where in the Constitution it says that we aren't allowed to have a border, that we have to import the entire third world. Literally show me where. Being a constitutionalist doesn't actually mean anything in this context. There's no tangible belief set there. Maybe you support gun rights, free speech. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's fine. That's all well and good. What about the actual issues that we're talking about right now, facing Americans right now? I'm not saying those aren't important issues. I am saying things like border security. What does the Constitution say? What's the position that we're supposed to infer from that document regarding that issue? Leftists use that all the time, by the way, my Constitution. Curiously, they always use it as a response to say, Trump can't do this, Trump can't do that, Trump can't secure the border, Trump can't deport people. Oh, the Constitution. Are we saying they're correct? Is that what we're saying? These are the authorities on the Constitution? Yeah, how's that been for us for the last, 60 years? Thomas Massey says yes to that. Thomas Massey agrees with that sentiment. Well, Thomas Massey
voted to keep the border open. Did you know that, Ron?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but 92% of the time he votes with Republicans. It's the 7% of the time when he takes his principled stance that he takes a far left-wing position, open borders.
I would say that the only reason that I knew that is because I listened to this podcast.
Yeah, because he does a good job kind of as a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another one, right? Thomas Massey gets on with Tucker Carlson and says, oh, the guy I'm running against gets all this money from out of state, and it's coming from all these NGOs, and it's coming from the Jewish lobby. Meanwhile, Massey's taking a lot of money from a dude named Muhammad. Turns out most of Thomas Massey's individual contributions come from far left California. He's received $225,216 in this cycle and only $70,000 from his state. His out-of-state contributions were $1,162,867, meaning only 5.71% of his grassroots donations come from where it matters most, his home state. This is a really bad for a 7-time incumbent. And here's the numbers. He gets out-of-state contributions. 94.29% of his campaign donations are not coming even from his state, let alone his constituency. California makes up the grand total, some coming from Texas. These are probably coming from far left donors and far left groups. Florida, Kentucky, only 70,000, and New York make up the top. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
Kind of paints a weird picture, doesn't it?
Yep. John Doyle goes on to talk about this, the fundraising.
We spoke a little bit about AIPAC earlier, how Thomas Massey doesn't take money from them. That's really cool and all. Did you know that Thomas Massey does take money from IPAC? Ever heard of IPAC? Also known as the Integrity PAC. It's a Pennsylvania-based left-wing political action committee, largely focused on supporting the plight of the Palestinian people. Okay, makes sense why they would support Massey, right? That's fine. In 2025, this PAC launched an initiative in collaboration with the Democratic Socialists of America to oppose ICE, whom they refer to as Gestapo-like gangsters, guerrilla warfare style in the streets, all that stuff, language designed to get them killed. The same PAC working to help re-elect Thomas Massey is also helping to fund all of those radical leftist agitators who harass ICE agents and impede them from doing their job, which is deporting illegal aliens, again, because they want to get them all killed. So based on Thomas Massey's voting record, now it makes even more sense why IPAC would be supporting him. Does it not? Thomas Massey even flew all of the way to Pennsylvania to meet with the chairman of the PAC, Rafaed Aberjan. Very American name. I can't even make fun of the name. The name is by itself a mockery of producing noise with my mouth. I wonder which side of the Civil War that guy's ancestors fought for. We're at a stage in America where we can't even do the whole North and South thing anymore because now the new Americans weren't even here in the first place.
That's the problem. Republicans get really in on this libertarian thing because it does sound good to us. Let's return to a constitution and limited government. Well, does limited government mean open borders because we don't fund ICE and Border Patrol? Does limited government mean we just let people sell us cheap crap from slave nations like China? Does limited government... Do you see where we're going with this?
Yeah.
It's completely and totally inconsistent, which explains why Thomas Massey, the guy who, the America First crowd is like, if Thomas Massey is the problem, then we're never going to make America great again. Thomas Massey is one of the reasons why it's been such a struggle to make America great again.
Remember the day after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, when Thomas Massey practically blamed the assassination on Trump's rhetoric? by telling him that he had to turn down the temperature. Remember when Trump was trying to get universities to stop letting men into women's restrooms by threatening to revoke federal funding? Then MIT refused to do so, and Thomas Massie praised them for not taking the bribe. Me, when I'm fiscally conservative and I'm against people withholding federal funding, Thomas Massie is trans, literally, like confirmed, by the way. Again, water seeks its own level. The guy's doing too many favors for these people. We can only assume that this is the case. Remember when Thomas Massie used a 10-year-old tweet from Charlie Kirk to insinuate that Charlie Kirk, who is currently deceased and therefore unable to speak for himself, would still support him against Trump's primary challenge? Remember when Thomas Massie campaigned for Mitch McConnell? Literally, LOL. Remember when Cenk Uygur from TYT, Jack Dorsey, remember when these people endorsed Thomas Massie? Far left people who are pro-censorship, they love Thomas Massie. Remember when the Annunciation Catholic School was shot up by a trans...
Why is that? Because Thomas Massie's like, the government shouldn't tell private corporations what they can and can't do. So go ahead and let them censor. This is why Thomas Massie's always been like a burr in my side, because it's like, I mean, I like your libertarian stances, but dude, like they come out at the worst moments.
Gender psychopath. And Thomas Massie took to Twitter a few days later to let everybody know that he supports the rights of mentally ill freaks who are so misaligned with reality that they cut their own penises off to own guns. Remember when Thomas Massie cried about Trump blowing up narco terrorists who were actively trying to import poison into the United States to profit off the suffering and death of Americans, suffering and death that disproportionately impacts his own state? Oh, he's just a principled guy. The only solid principle is helping the left win at all costs. That is the only principle that maps across the board. That's why the retard right loves him so much. The people who are actively saying that they want Democrats to win the midterms, the people who campaign for Kamala Harris in 2024, the Ian Carrolls, the Candace Owens, the Tucker Carlsons. Thomas Massie is the personification, the distillation of the retard right as a whole. All of these freaks rolled up into one dude. Remember
this podcast he did was great. It just went through all of this stuff. All of this stuff. This Thomas Massie is a great example. If we would sit down with him and we would enjoy his company, we would really enjoy his company. He's got an amazing life story. He's got a cool farm. He's wicked intelligent. But the adversaries of America take advantage of him. They weaponize his virtue against us. Oh, you want limited government? Doesn't that mean open borders? Because don't want to spend money, right? Right? Oh, we like limited government? That means we don't want to oppose people who are so mentally ill they'll chop off their genitalia from having guns. Oh, I oppose all gun bans at all. Well, on a normal Tuesday, I would agree with that statement. But when we get down to the nuance of it, do you see what I'm saying? Like, maybe not those people get, like there's kind of some bounds to this. Again, unfettered freedom turns us into Mad Max. And that's where Thomas Massie's policies would ultimately go. And Thomas Massie, libertarians have the same mental illness that communists have. You can never actually try their solutions. Our founding fathers clearly explained to us that government exists to regulate our vices. A libertarian would give us over to those vices, the same as a communist would. Does that make sense? So a libertarian, just like an intellectual communist, will go, well, we've never tried full-on libertarianism. We've never gone far enough. So, since we haven't let everybody have guns, and since we don't have free trade around the world with no borders anywhere, they can always say we didn't do it enough.
Well,
we weren't liberty-oriented enough. So let's keep taking another bite of the apple at more and more bad ideas.
I thought Robert Downey Jr. said it best. He said, never go full retard.
Never go full retard. Never go full retard right. Exactly. Trump also came out and said this. We have another of these names that have already come up in the show. Palestinian Chuck Schumer is hiring Eric Holder. Who's Eric Holder? He was Barack Obama's wingman, attorney general under Barack Obama, the one who instituted Fast and the Furious and turned a blind eye to all of the retarded things that Obama was doing. Famous for handing guns to Mexican cartels under Barack Hussein Obama administration. Isn't it funny how in one weekend we have Eric Holder getting hired, Trump's doing an interview with Cheryl Atkinson, whose story intersects with Eric Holder. Isn't it funny?
Wow.
Right? It's a small club, Ron. It's a small club, and we're not in it. Although that club hit me with their club the last 5 years as part of a Democrat-led, quote, election integrity group. Must be the same election integrity group that Biden showed up that he called the largest voter fraud organization in the history of mankind. You know, the one that pays people in your local county to go harvest ballots. Even judges got in on it that will no doubt try to suppress Republican voters and interfere with our elections. Oh, at least someone said it. That's their objective. Furthermore, Mark Elias, who's Mark Elias? He was one of the attorneys at Perkins Coie. Where did Perkins Coie come on the scene? It was the Gregoire election here in Washington State.
Yeah.
Probably our first big example of flipping an election. There were ballots coming out of people's trunks for weeks.
Dino Rossi won twice.
Dino Rossi and Gregoire, right? That's where Perkins Coie came in, and that's what got them on the scene. And the Democrats said, hey, we like him. And they hired Perkins Coie as the Democrat National Convention law firm. Okay. Perkins Coie then went on to take money from Hillary Clinton, $2 million, and pass it on to Fusion GPS in England for the Steele dossier, which is the origin of the Russiagate conspiracy.
Same dudes.
Mark Elias, a terrible lawyer with a horrible track record, is also involved. This is the same disgusting individual who was responsible for the fake Russia dossier from a foreign nation to meddle in the 2016 election, which I won in historic fashion. The Democrats are totally unhinged and will not allow them to, and we will not allow them to threaten the integrity of our elections. During my historic 2024 election in 2024, when I won every single swing state and decisively won both the electoral and popular votes by wide margins, it is amazing that Trump won both those elections. Considering the structure of the elections, considering the ballot fraud at every different level you can think of, it is amazing that he won those elections. I think there is a fair argument that there are no blue states. There is a fair argument that there are no blue states. The Republicans had an election integrity army in every single state to preserve the sanctity of each illegal vote. And who were those people? They were guys like you and I, Ron. I was in prison, so I wasn't there. But who literally camped outside these voting centers and turned away U-Haul trucks full of ballots in Detroit. It's the thousands of lawyers that the RNC finally manned up and hired under the direction of Laura Trump and the guy who's running for Senate in North Carolina, who had attorneys ready to go if a single ballot showed up after close of polling and went to a court to make sure those ballots couldn't be counted. It was that volunteer army, for the most part, that came out to secure the elections and make sure that the Democrats couldn't tip the scales 15 or 20% like they needed to. We will be doing the same again in 2026, but it will be much bigger and stronger. They've learned it works. The only thing these people are afraid of is exposure and a badge and a gun. All Americans should have their voices heard by casting a vote. Be assured this election will be fair. Donald J. Trump. There was a post that came out this weekend, and this was by one of, this is a really good post, and I deleted who posted it, but it doesn't matter. It's for public consumption. This is a comprehensive chronological timeline of evidence of corruption, election interference, and subversion of the government and all illegal activities. It starts in June.
This would be a pretty lengthy document.
Now, in June 2009, there's a single post. This is where Carter Page became a CIA informant. Okay, so he was a CIA informant. He was doing consulting work and whatnot overseas with the Russians, and he became an ongoing CIA informant. Every time he had a conversation with the Russians, he'd call up the CIA and he'd get debriefed. So he was an asset of the CIA. In 2013, the FBI completed paperwork allowing the SDI to designate Steele as a confidential human source. Who's Christopher Steele? The one who wrote the Steele dossier. 2015, there was evidence of Clinton corruption. Dr. Jill McCabe, who's Jill McCabe? Andy McCabe, the deputy director of the FBI's wife, was running for a state Senate seat, and she took donations from Hillary Clinton totaling $675,000, approximately 40% of her total contributions. That's from the Horowitz report. In 2015, New York Times reports that Secretary Clinton used a private email account. June 26, 2015, Trump announces his candidacy for president. 2015, evidence of corruption. FBI opens the mid-year exam into Hillary Clinton, who then destroys her cell phones, bleach bits her servers, and claims to not have the information. July 2015, Russia hacks the DNC, Democrat National Committee. There is dispute over that. A lot of people think it was Seth Rich. Summer 2015, Russia initiates social media chaos. They spent about 119 grand on Facebook ads, a drop in the bucket. But basically, they're just trying to gin up controversy. Summer, fall of 2015, Russia initiates, March of 2019, Russia, Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, John Podesta, falls victim to a email phishing scam by Russiagate. This is where we get the Podesta leaks that were on WikiLeaks that expose Pizzagate. That's kind of where that comes from. March 2016, a guy named Misfud, who was a British spy academic, has George Papadopoulos join the Trump campaign as an advisor. And Papadopoulos meets in London-based professor Joseph Misfud, who Papadopoulos understands to have substantial connections to the Russian government officials. March 2021, Trump identifies Papadopoulos and Carter Page as members of his foreign policy team. Trump's campaign was infiltrated. Remember, Trump was a reality TV star. At least that's what they were selling the world. The Democrats were. And what he did was he had an interview where he gets asked a staged question. What's your foreign policy plan? You have no experience. And he goes, well, I've got good advisors. And he reaches into his suit coat and he pulls out a piece of paper and unfolds it. And he reads off a couple names, one of which being Carter Page and one of which being George Papadopoulos, who had already been set up as these people that are now in Trump's orbit. He's got hundreds of advisors. And who does he read off? Papadopoulos and Carter Page. Somebody in his campaign handed him a piece of paper knowing that question was going to be asked. And he goes, oh, well, I have foreign advisors, pulls it out of his pocket, reads the name. Boom. Now you have the public connection. Somebody in his campaign handed him that piece of paper and just goes, if they ask this question here, just give them these names. These are good guys. And they are good guys. Okay. Trump appointed Paul Manafort to manage the Republican National Convention for the Trump campaign. Unfortunately, Paul Manafort is a little bit dirty because he's a political operative. Following the meeting with Joseph Misfud and Italy, Papadopoulos tells Trump, Jeff Sessions, and Carter Page, and other campaign members that he can use Russian connections to arrange a meeting between Trump and Putin. So Papadopoulos has been set up to do this. What's so wrong with being allies with Russia? Right? And then it goes on here, and eventually we get to all the information we have. But this is a timeline that goes through every act of corruption and every act by the government and everything that went on in this case. It goes all the way to January 6th. Okay. It goes and goes and goes. It goes all the way to January 6th. When we talk about a grand conspiracy case, it's the same dang people that are involved in thing over and over and over and over again.
It's weird.
Commit the crime, cover up the crime, commit a new crime, cover up the cover up of the cover up of the crime, commit another crime, covering up the cover up over and over and over again. All the way to the point where you start getting DC officials like Muriel Bowser and police chiefs in January 6th covering that up, again, setting up the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and others to instigate the January 6th, or at least take the blame for instigating January 6th. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on.
Jeez.
Grand conspiracy case. You want to know why J6ers haven't been settled with? You want to know why the 2020 election being rigged and stolen isn't ubiquitous across media? Is because a lot of media reporters are still hanging on to stories that they wrote as part of the cover up, and they don't want to be wrong. There were people who won Pulitzer Prizes for their Russia interviews, right? On and on it goes. Like I said, one big conspiracy.
You're still scrolling.
One huge conspiracy. January 6th, a detailed timeline. Wonder if I'm mentioned in here. Some dude went up the stairs and tried to push on a gate. Fascinating. Anyways, very interesting. So we await for that. Now, James Comey has been indicted for threatening Trump's life. And there's a trial date that's been set for July 15th. Pretty soon.
Whoa.
Yeah, pretty soon. I'm sure it'll get pushed out just because I don't think he wants to go on trial unless, of course, he paid for the jurors, which, far be it from me to put that past the possibility. Trump gets asked this out on the White House lawn. Sorry for the sound. There's a helicopter in the background. All
Are you worried now that the next time there's a Democratic president, they will indict your FBI director or people in your administration?
That's what they tried to do, right? They did it with me for 4 years. They went after me. They went after me for 4 years, and that doesn't include the 4 great years that we had in the White House. So when I ran it from 2016 when we won, it began before I got to office. You know that. Wait a minute. Before I came to office, I started hearing rumors about Russia. I said, what the hell do I have to do with Russia? Nothing. And then it got worse and worse. And some of the fakers, not you, but some of the fake news picked it up and they loved it. And we went through a long time with that. And despite that, we had a great first term.
That's how it went, where they made you go and take a mugshot. Is this more about justice or is it about revenge?
It's about justice, really. It's not revenge. It's also about the fact that you can't let this go on. They are sick, radical left people, and they can't get away with it. And Comey was one of the people. He wasn't the biggest, but he's a dirty cop. He's always been a dirty cop. Everybody knew it. And it's, as far as the case is concerned, he gave an answer. It was just...
Is this about retribution? Yeah, retribution for trying to overthrow our country and pretty much succeeding. Now, the Democrats, the socialists, the deep state, they're not as creative as you might think. They tend to run the same game plan over and over and over again. Do you remember COVID? Do you remember scenes like this coming out of COVID? And by the way, these are verified pictures, right? So here's COVID 2020. Here's the cameraman filming someone dressed up in a biohazard suit, right? This is like Anderson Cooper standing on his knees in the water and then somebody in a canoe going by and then some lady just goes walking and it's like the canoe was staged. It's like, it's like 8 inches of water. Oh, this is devastating flooding. Listen, I'm not saying 8 inches isn't bad, but it ain't that. So here you have COVID 2020. Well, now we already have hantavirus 2026. Oh, isn't this an important election year, Ron? Maybe we should declare a national emergency. Dr. Pierre Corey.
Safe space, man. Safe distancing.
Dr. Pierre Corey, who was one of the doctors that went and stood on the Capitol steps and had 2 million views on Breitbart, and then they got censored, and Simone Gold and Pierre Corey and the African-American doctor out of Texas all just got censored to oblivion. He noted something really interesting with this hantavirus that's going on a cruise ship, that there seems to be some type of media coordination.
What actually kind of intrigued me more, and tell you about what you said, is a colleague told me that there was like 100,000 articles written around the world on hantavirus in the last couple of days. And that's not typical for a hantavirus outbreak. Certainly there's always attention and people get scared, but like, that's the other thing with COVID. It was COVID 24/7. And then when you said in your intro about how it seems to be driven by influencers, I'm sorry if I'm getting too like, I actually never want to use the word tin hat because I'm not a tin hat, but these patterns are anomalous. Why, with just this little outbreak of a few cases, suddenly like it's consuming the world's media cycle? Like, for instance, I'm on talking about it today. It's because it's being driven by something.
It's being driven by something. Hey, I know who it's being driven by. It's being driven by legacy media, who really doesn't want this election to go fair. Yeah. They would really like to impeach Donald Trump. And even one of Trump's advisors, he just got stuck with her. Okay. Dr. Birx. Dr. Birx made a media appearance on News Nation. They gave her some airtime. And listen to what she has to say. We must resist this at all costs. We must resist this. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. There are millions of people who took the COVID vaccine that probably regret it today. There are millions of people who bought into the whole COVID narrative that look back with hindsight 2020 and regret it. Don't get sucked in again.
So the Andes strain is the only strain where we have mapped human to human transmission. And I caution people because When we say human to human transmission, we're talking about people who develop symptoms. But because we're not testing populations with RNA, we don't really know whether there are subclinical cases. So there could be more human to human transmission than we actually see. It's never good to track viruses through symptoms. We should be tracking viruses through blood tests like PCR. We've learned that with COVID. Extraordinarily helpful. Many universities were able to open and schools were able to open because they provided weekly testing and it really prevented spread. So we know how to deal with these viruses. We just need to move into the 21st century and make testing more widely available to those who need it.
Okay.
So now are we going to do weekly testing for hantavirus?
Yeah,
this is the
testing for
stupidest
hantavirus.
mother effing thing I've ever heard.
They're going to do it wrong.
Oh my God.
They're going to try to do it. They're going to try to do it. You know, they say the sequel's never as good as the original. They're going to try to do it.
This will be like Sharknado.
Yeah.
This is so bad.
This is happening, buddy. This is happening. Hundreds of thousands of articles. Deborah Birx makes an appearance. We need to test people. We need to shut businesses down and make testing the reason why you can.
This is all about a virus that a month ago, 99% of these people never even heard of. I've heard of it. My wife is from New Mexico, where hantavirus is a thing, and this is stupid.
I heard about hantavirus when I was pitching an army tent out in the desert of Boise, and they're like, make sure there isn't any like rodent droppings under your tent because it could be hantavirus.
Right.
Like that was it. And you know, when I learned about it, ever since then, if I have mouse droppings around, I get out a little bottle of Clorox, I spray it first, then sweep it up.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the solution. Unless you move the feces around, it goes airborne. But this strain, Ron, this strain, person to person.
Oh, of course.
Person.
Yeah. And that is the craziest thing, because hantavirus is not person to person, people. It's not. And they're like, well, there's this one strain that we found somewhere that all of a sudden it's just everywhere in the whole freaking world. Shut up. It's not.
Yeah.
It's so dumb.
Now, Trump is having a meeting with Xi Jinping this week. This should go pretty well. Well, I don't know. I mean, it could go well or bad. I guess we'll see. Hopefully he comes back. I mean, at this point, it's like, don't hold it against the communists not to do something drastic. Trump will be meeting with them.
President Trump will only be in China a short time, landing Wednesday, leaving on Friday. But in that short period of time, the White House is hoping to show a lot of progress on a number of different fronts, as Democrats claim the president's strategy on Iran is not only backfiring, but costly.
President Trump is going into this meeting terribly weakened. He has involved ourselves in a conflict with Iran. There's a stalemate now. The Iranians are.
He has a Ukrainian flag on his lapel.
We just played a clip of Trump. Did he look weakened to you?
Yeah. He has a Ukrainian flag on his lapel.
Right.
Holding 20% of the world's oil at risk. China, as you pointed out, is doing quite well because of their alternate energy investments. The president's going.
China's dying. China's dying right now.
To Xi in his position of weakness, not strength.
Iran is likely to dominate the agenda as China has both political and economic interests in the Middle East. As the Wall Street Journal points out, President Xi also wants the fighting to stop as Middle East turmoil restricts China's oil supply and shrinks the country's ability to buy Chinese goods. Among other issues, the future of Taiwan, where the U.S. sells billions of dollars worth of weapons. And while China sees Taiwan as its own, the U.S. leaves its label a bit more ambiguous.
The Chinese understand our position on that topic. We understand theirs. I think both countries understand that it is neither one of our interests to see anything destabilize happen in that part of the world. We don't need any destabilizing events to occur with regards to Taiwan or anywhere in the Indo-Pacific. And I think that's to the mutual benefit of both the United States and the Chinese.
So as Luke has mentioned in his report, the president rejecting Iran's latest counterproposal. We'll see if the president has any more to say today. He will speak on camera a few different points.
So the assumption has been that when China wanted Iran to back down, Iran would back down because China buys their stuff, they sell them stuff, they buy their oil, and that they would have them under their thumb. Xi Jinping is learning a lesson that communists learned a long time ago. Never underestimate the power of religion and belief. This is why communists and fascists, from Hitler to Stalin to Mussolini to Pol Pot and to Chairman Mao, all understood that you had to get rid of religion. Even inside of China, They persecute the Uyghur Muslims, and they persecute the Falun Gong and the underground Christian church. Why? Because those religious beliefs can produce something called a martyr. Never underestimate the power of a martyr. When they believe heaven awaits them and the virgins are just on the other side of darkness, you can't always count on them to be good actors and to act in their self-interest. They will literally cut off their nose to spite their face, aka blow themselves up, die the martyr's death. And so Xi Jinping is finding out that his partners in Iran may not act in his interest or their own interest either, right? They have a big part of what's going on there. Iran can say uncle at any time, modernize, enter the League of Nations, open the Strait of Hormuz, and probably become very economically viable. They're a great, powerful nation with good resources, but they have a mind virus. They have a mind virus. A couple years ago, England, Britain, the United Kingdom found out they had an election problem. They had machines that were hackable, and they did there was a huge hubbub over there. I think they completely got rid of the machines, and they've gone to paper ballots. They are a good democracy. Okay. France did the same thing. Their elections do represent their voters. I'm sure there's some buying votes, and I'm sure there's a lot of that little local precinct fraud, but on a whole, their elections are reliable. And what happened last week in Britain? There was sweeping losses by the Labour Party, sweeping losses. So bad, in fact, that Keir Starmer is going to resign.
Well, breaking tonight, Sir Keir Starmer looks set to resign as Prime Minister in this coming week. I know you've heard it all before, but we've seen huge speculation this evening that suggests the Prime Minister's time has indeed run out. Wes Streeting has told Sir Keir Starmer that he is preparing his case to be the next Prime Minister. The Telegraph has indeed disclosed this evening. Former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner has also posted on X this evening demanding that Starmer allows Andy Burnham to return to Westminster. She's also criticised a so-called toxic culture in Number 10 and said it might be Labour's last chance to reverse its fortunes. And a couple of hours ago, journalist Dan Hodges has reported that a cabinet minister has informed him that, quotes, they believe Keir Starmer will announce he's standing down this week without the need for a contest. He goes on to say that this is the first time
that they take it serious. There's always been calls for whoever the leader is to resign, but their election, they had overwhelming sweeps, even in northern Britain, where Labour has dominated for like 70 or since World War II, lost their councils. Big deal. I've said it before. If we can fix the elections, we can flush out a lot of these bad policies and bad politicians. You've got to go to takebackyourcounty.com and get involved on the political side of things, because this day is coming. Trump promised us. Trump promised us this election will be fair one way or the other, right? And we'll respect the election if we believe they're fair, or if they point a gun at our heads and tell us to respect the elections. Carlitz gave us a great stock tip. He said, it must be time to buy Moderna and Pfizer stock. If you want to play that game, go ahead. But there's a better solution. And to this extent, this is how we, the people, take our power back. We have to take our money back. And I've presented over and over again how Bitcoin is a huge tool of this. If you look on the screen, I've got fiat money is backed by guns, and that is the truth. When you understand that fiat means fake, the only way you can get people to accept a colored dollar bill that's worth nothing but an IOU from someone else or even yourself is when they put an army in front of it, which is what we're seeing around the world today. And as Marco Rubio said, in 5 years, we won't even be talking about sanctions, which is how you enforce the dollar. And so the solution is Bitcoin, which is backed by math. It is a sound money. Here is Safedian Amos, who wrote the book, The Bitcoin Standard. And he explained why Bitcoin, or why socialists love fiat systems. So bringing this back home, last week we talked about, or I guess it was 2 weeks ago on last Friday's episode, two Fridays ago, we talked about how socialists view their power as the votes, the ballots. It's not even the people, it's the ballots, right? That's where they get their power. And then they turn around and they abuse the power that money normally represents, an actual actual store of energy and excess work and excess power. But the truth is, money is the energy, right? Money is the energy. And Bitcoin reverses that. But socialists are going to try to hang on to fiat as long as they can, because with fiat currency, they can print money and pay vote gatherers to go get illegal ballots. With fiat, they can pay money and they can keep you addicted to the juice, right? Unable to actually fix any real systems because you're dependent on the system because you don't have real money, a store of value.
Fiat enables socialism.
Absolutely. I think it's not a coincidence that the century of, and that's the century of socialism was the century of fiat. And that is a theme, an important theme in my gold standard book. I'm not going to ruin it. I'm not going to give you spoilers, but, well, maybe I will. But essentially in that alternative century, socialism and leftism are nowhere to be seen effectively. Because if you look at the history of socialism, I mean, it exploded and mushroomed all over the world right after World War I. And that's no coincidence. Before World War I, very few people had ever heard of Karl Marx. And very few people in places like Russia or China had heard about him. And this insane idea that these are grassroots movements, it's completely ridiculous. It wasn't as if the Russian farmers were reading Karl Marx and realized, all right, and that's it, we figured it out. That's how we fix our lives. It was always an idea that was top down. It was always imposed and financed from the top. And
Karl Marx in his life was unsuccessful at every semi-revolution that he participated in, whether it was the Paris Commune or any others. And the reason was they couldn't finance their stupid ideas. They couldn't finance them. But they got a huge win in Russia because when you took over Russia, all of a sudden you could enforce the use of their money, which they could create. You could create legal tender. This is what you will use to transact. And with that money, they could then buy the support of the peasants and the farmers who didn't know any better, who thought that money was real. In 1913, Woodrow Wilson, who admired the Marxists and was a progressive, which was just the American version of socialism, right? It's just a different term. They admired them and they established the central bank, the Federal Reserve, and then the IRS to create control over the money. This is their tool. This is how they eventually completely won the game in 1933 when they got rid of all gold and silver as money in the United States and implemented the New Deal policy. And then in 1971, when the entire world went off the gold standard. This is why we're in such bad shape as we are today. And you're not going to fix the system using that system. You can't. And the system itself, while it might want to adopt Bitcoin as a store of value, we, the peasants, are the ones that are going to put teeth into it when we start using it. When we start using it. When we are no longer dependent on their fake funny money, we can't be bought off by it anymore. You want to become a powerful grassroots movement? Become a wealthy people.
I get in particular into the history of the Bolsheviks in Russia, and the Bolsheviks were financed by German and American bankers who wanted to bring down the Tsarist regime. And every socialist movement that has come into power in the 20th century, maybe every is a strong word, but I'm pretty sure that is the case, has always had significant funding from foreign sources. It was never an organic movement. You never had this mass movement of a majority of the population reading Karl Marx and then arriving at the conclusion that we need to destroy private property in order to make our country better. It was always people who lusted for power and people who had a lot of money and power and wanted to reinforce their position in society, who used these criminal ideas to undermine the fundamentals of the society and fundamentals of the social working order, undermine the family, undermine religion, undermine monarchy, and undermine capitalism. And if you undermine all of those things, you essentially take away what creates all the basis of human civilization. You return humans to a state of barbarism, and you make them essentially powerless, helpless slaves without capital, without religion, without monarchy, without family. Without these institutions, we go back to being monkeys in the jungle, stinging our feces at each other. And that is essentially what socialism leads to.
Sounds like Skid Row. Sounds like Skid Row.
And that is, I think, it's as you said, it's heavily intertwined with fiat because, first of all, the the creation of a central bank and the destruction of the gold standard is the only way that you can implement those ideas. You need to pay a lot of people to wear the jackboots and go knocking people's doors, confiscate their property, take their gold, shoot them if they resist. That's very expensive, and you can't do that on a gold standard. So you've never had a socialist dictatorship that ran a gold standard, as far as I can tell. You have to have it with fiat money. And it's also the reason, I believe, why universities in general are always heavily promoting leftist ideas. Not all and not at all times, but to a very large degree, a vast majority.
Yeah.
You know, the 20th century is just always, across all disciplines in the social sciences, you always see this heavy emphasis on Marxist ideas and leftist and progressive ideas and all these different flavors of the same shit, essentially. And the reason for that is that these ideas help people to help people in power. The people in power like those ideas. You know, and it works perfectly because it is packaged in the rhetoric of helping the poor, helping the downtrodden, helping the farmers and the workers and so on. But all that it does is it destroys those people's lives to the benefits of the people who come to power and the people who have the resources. And so that's why fiat is so popular with socialists, and that's why socialism is so popular with fiatists.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not a coincidence that the fifth tenet of the Communist Manifesto is the necessity for the centralization of credit.
It's a tenet of the manifesto. The centralization of credit, aka the central bank. And in America, we call our central bank the Federal Reserve. The only thing federal about it is the name itself. Nothing else is. And by the way, the word federal means by agreement. So it's the reserve by agreement. Not because it has intrinsic value, not because it has utility, not because it is a legitimate store of energy. It's our capital by agreement. And how do you enforce that agreement? Bullets, which is where you enter into the oppression that socialism always ends up pushing. Because the only way you can get people to agree to that reserve value that's fake is with force and with incentive. Punishment and carrots. That's what the IRS does.
So if we could get rid of the Second Amendment, we could be full socialists finally.
Finally. Then people can't fight back. We don't have to have any kind of fiscal policy at all. But you think about the little protest on the street corner, which was paid by NGOs.
Right.
And you go listen to Burkhardt explain how that works. You get some NGO that opens up, save the kitties. And then some rich person puts $1 million in there of money that's fake. And then the government goes, oh, it's a legitimate charity. Let's give them a grant for $100 million and they'll do more good. So all those people standing on the corner protesting against really our better interests, paid by the funny money. Socialism requires fake money to pay for the jackboots to kick in your door, to pay for the protesters, to pay for those people, because the ideas don't work. The ideas aren't popular, and it would be incredibly expensive, an incredible investment of capital with no return if you had a sound money system.
Yeah.
A local news channel in Ohio wanted to understand Bitcoin. There was a local financial planner who was trying to dissuade his clients from investing in Bitcoin. What's Bitcoin? Bitcoin's nothing. It's whatever. It's fake. It's whatever you think it's worth. It's not worth anything. It's garbage. And they did a little newscast, and this financial planner was stunned by what he discovered about Bitcoin.
Another record set today by the price of Bitcoin. How many of you understand it? I don't. I can't teach you about it, but today I talked with a financial advisor who believes you need to learn more about it. Ray House2 watches the financial station for a Bitcoin price.
There it is right there. 92,600.
Another record-setting day.
I absolutely advise everybody to do your homework on it, to research this. It is something that you need to know and learn about.
Ray House2 is a financial advisor. He was a doubter at first on Bitcoin, but he studied it, finding a paper which explained the blockchain technology Bitcoin is based on.
And I read that and I was blown away by it because I just wanted to find a reason to tell people this was garbage, and I couldn't.
House2 can't say whether you should buy it or not. Every person's situation is different. He believes demand for Bitcoin right now is based on two things. The SEC approved it for exchange-traded products, and Donald Trump embracing digital assets.
The Bitcoin is the network itself. So the government can't control it. A bank can't control it. The central banks can't control it. And that's part of the reason that people are excited about it.
Bitcoin seemed more like a gaming token and novelty instrument when it started 15 years ago. Now it's recognized like other investments which are centuries old.
But if there was silver and oil and everything else.
House 2 believes Bitcoin has proven that it's here to stay.
It's like gold, only it's much more efficient than gold. You don't have to pay to store it. You don't have to pay to transport it. You don't have to pay to protect it. You don't have to cut, with gold, you can't cut slivers off to pay for things. All those you can do with Bitcoin.
Now, there will only be 21 million Bitcoin mined. There are 56 million millionaires around the world. If every one of them wanted to own a full Bitcoin, they couldn't.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Watson. Thanks for watching the WKBN 27 First News YouTube.
Yep.
Gotta understand it. I like this little meme here. You can put this on the screen. So here's the flow chart when people are asking about Bitcoin. Do you have money? Yes, buy Bitcoin. No. Do you have a job? Yes, study Bitcoin and then buy Bitcoin. Do you have money not for Bitcoin? Study Bitcoin, then buy Bitcoin. Do you have a job? No. Find a job, study Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin. It's a great chart.
All roads lead to buy Bitcoin.
All roads lead to buy Bitcoin. All roads lead to buy Bitcoin. Tomaste on YouTube commented yesterday or this weekend. He goes, I was listening to your podcast. Pretty soon you're going to be a Bitcoin podcast. I'm like, you already are. Bitcoin is a powerful way for we, the peasants, to take our power back. It's not just an investment. It's not a tech stock. No, it's not as good as probably the returns that Moderna and Pfizer are going to have if this hantavirus thing really picks up, right? But in 30 minutes, I have my first auto withdrawal for Bitcoin auto purchase. Congratulations, Dad. Put it in a trust and leave it to us when you go. Make sure you don't let those keys die with you when you leave. All right. So Bitcoin is one of the fundamental things that you can do, whether or not you want to get involved in the nitty gritty sausage making of politics. If you want to do that, you go to takebackyourcounty.com and get involved in political activism. Go to politicalremodel.com, download the manuscript and understand what we're going to be doing over there. But regardless of if you choose to get involved at that degree, if you're a small business owner, if you're an employee, save Bitcoin. It is an incredible investment opportunity, but more than that, it's a counterbalance to the socialist communist money system we call fiat. Fiat means fake, a canard, a farce, and they can only get you to believe it's real when they incentivize you with force. Take that power away from them, hold them accountable. All right, guys, we're going to jump over to private. And we're going to be talking about the redistricting battle. Governor Jeff Landry from Louisiana, who was just informed that their state's congressional districts are unconstitutional, has to field questions as to why they can't just proceed with the unconstitutional districts in an act of pure retardism from the reporter. And then we're going to talk about how the map looks for Republicans going forward. So this is really important. We are on the verge. This is a big year. Trump's trying to fight it from the high end to fix our elections. Hopefully we see some machine reform. We've already got the Postal Service that's going to do special barcode QR codes on ballots to make sure we know where the ballots go and when they come back. We've got highlighted awareness of ballot harvesting, mail-in voting, all of these things. He's trying to fix that structural problem. But the courts, believe it or not, have fixed the gerrymandering in favor of the Democrats by saying no more racial districts. Those are unconstitutional, which has created a flood of Republican states who have these minority majority districts. These giveaways to the Democrats are redistricting. And already the map is looking a lot more favorable for Republicans in 2020. So stick around with us on private. If you're not a Rumble subscription member, please consider joining. And, tomorrow we are going to do our May 9th. We're going to do our tip campaign. We're going to do our return. I forgot that the 9th was on a weekend. Sorry. So we're going to do that tomorrow. And the top donor, believe it or not, identified himself to us. Thank you very much. And he said, I don't want a kickback. Give it to the next guy. So
what?
There's going to be a
rollover,
little extra in there. But we'll go ahead and we'll extend it till tomorrow. So if you want to make a Rumble tip at the last second, you can do that. Any of you who are listening now, you just go to Rumble, click on the Rumble wallet link. If you want to know how to get Bitcoin, you can use river.com. Ron, the link is in the show notes. You don't have to put it in the chats. We're just wrapping that up. It's in the show notes. You can do that. It's the easiest way to buy Bitcoin. And then you do send Bitcoin, send it on the Lightning Network, and then go grab the link off our Rumble wallet on here, copy, paste it in, boop, send. It's that easy. Peer-to-peer transaction.